Hello, we are going to do things a little bit differently today. Moving forward, most of my videos are going to be structured like this. I'm going to start the video with a little weekly update, and I will let you know some books, maybe a book that I've read this week that I've really enjoyed, or a perfume that I've liked this week that I've really enjoyed, maybe just miscellaneous things that I've loved. And then I want to move into a video essay. And this week we are going to be talking about the overarching question of, can intellectual intimacy replace physical desire? So that will be our main topic of conversation, and we will see how it goes. I'm excited to start more video essay style videos with you. I will always do monthly favorites, and I might sprinkle in some other feel-good content in between, but I want to see how this goes. I've been getting a lot of requests for more philosophy heavy topics, so we're going to try it out and see how it goes. But for now, let me tell you about all of the things this week that I have really loved and enjoyed so far. So the first one I want to recommend to you is The Consolation of Philosophy. I very much enjoyed this book, and it was nice, and it was a pretty quick read. This was written in prison, and it blends philosophy and poetry to grapple with the concept of fate and fortune and happiness. And it has the feel of autumn in that way, where it's very clear, but it's also solemn, yet there is this glimmering of hope. And in my Substack, I actually mentioned this text in my weekly curriculum that I do for Substack, just because I think that this is very prevalent to where we are in the world. This book feels very accessible as well if you are interested in getting into philosophy. The next book, I am very much in my Nietzsche era. I really want to get into more Nietzsche this fall, and so I decided to read The Birth of Tragedy. And this is Nietzsche's first book, written very young, on Greek tragedy and the tension between Apollonian order and Dionysian chaos. It's dense. Nietzsche's work is definitely more dense, but it's very electric. And it's really the beginning of his lifelong philosophy of art and life. And so yeah, these are the two that I want to recommend. I am working through a project, several project books this month, Dante's Inferno being one of them, and a few others. But these two I kind of was very much immersed in and highly recommend. In that essay that I did on Substack, I was comparing this book, The Consolation of Philosophy, with Zizek and also the movie La Haine. Anyways, I highly recommend that film, La Haine, L-A-H-A-I-N-E. It's was set in Paris, in the suburbs of Paris, in the mid to late 90s, about police riots in the suburbs, and it just felt very relevant, just the correlation of all of this. So highly recommend, and highly recommend subscribing to my Substack. Okay, I know a lot of people on the internet do not like Le Labo because they are kind of notorious for not having a great customer experience. But let me just tell you that this fragrance house does a brilliant job at creating stunning, long-lasting perfumes. I really genuinely, wholeheartedly, with my entire chest, love this perfume house, this brand. So these are the city exclusives that I have acquired, and two of these I've had, and I actually got a refill because they were getting very old smelling. I had them for maybe 3+ years, about 3+ years, and they were definitely due for an upgrade. And then my newest acquisition is Benjuan. So let me tell you about these three. Also, disclaimer, the city exclusives for Le Labo only last for the month of September. So what I recommend is going into the store or ordering a sample and trying the sample to see if you enjoy it. And if you like it, and if you have the means, the capacity, etc., then get it before it runs out, if you want, or not. This is Gaiac 10. This is the Tokyo City exclusive, and this is this is my favorite Le Labo of all time. I like this one, I like Thé Noir, I like Another 13, and I love Bergamot 22. This is my favorite. This is soft wood, smoke, musk. It is a meditative incense smell. Like, it's very intimate without being sweet, and it just smells quiet and contemplative, and it smells like a Japanese tea room and like an afternoon spent journaling in the rain. And it is the most creamy, stunning wood of all time. I don't know how else to describe it. It's so therapeutic and calming, and I am somebody who loves woody scents. And I also love incense fragrance, but I like incense in a way that feels accessible, that's not overly smoky or smelling like a yoga studio or something weird. I do not like that. This is not that. This is a Japanese tea room in the pouring rain on an autumn day, and you're journaling and you're listening to jazz music. This is that fragrance, and I love it with all of my heart. My newest scent, Benjuan 19 from Moscow. This is very resinous and glowing. It is built on benzoin, olibanum, and cedar and amber and musk. So it smells like the golden light of autumn. It smells like a sacred cathedral, warm to the touch, incense without the austerity. It smells just like the best benzoin ambery incense that you will ever smell. I really like this. I didn't even give this a second thought until I went to get this refilled, and I was like, let me sniff around. I loved Poivre 23, which is the London exclusive. The dry down on me, however, was not like I had hoped it to be. That I almost got that one instead of this one, but I got a small one just because I just want to play around with her and see how I like her. Okay, Vanille 44. I very much enjoy this one too, and this is like a very neck and neck with Gaiac. Layered together is even more beautiful. This smells like, it's not a sugared vanilla. This is a more resinous smoke incense Gaiac wood, an aldehyde wrapped around in a delicate vanilla heart. There is a little bit of citrus in this, and that citrus really drifts into this haze of warmth and shadow, and it is very luminous and creamy and woody and meditative, similar to Gaiac in a way that feels calming and therapeutic. So if you are looking for a vanilla that's not like the other vanillas, this is a great one to smell. I think Gaiac and Vanille 44 are the two most popular city exclusives for a reason. They're stunning, they are beautiful. Oh man, I just got like a really not great text message. Okay, cool. Anyways, one second. Okay, sorry about that. This is Pomelo Oolong. This is so beautiful. I wish, by Daenom, sorry. I wish that I would have had this in March to wear all spring and summer long, although I'm pretty sure that on a warmer day or on a day that I'm craving warmer weather, this is what I'm wearing. I was so impressed by this. The notes on this are oolong tea, pomelo, osmanthus, porcelain, and white musk. It smells like honeyed apricots. It is so warm and rounded out by the oolong tea leaves, and it's oolong tea that is steeping in a clay pot. No notes, like legitimately no notes. This perfume is stunning. This is one of my favorites by Denom. I also love white rice. That is another beautiful perfume. And I enjoy Vietnamese iced coffee is pretty good too. I have to be in the mood for that one. I also like, I think it's called Ariashima. It's that like green forest one that I really enjoyed. But if you don't know, their collections are all based in different Asian countries. So their first collection was Vietnam, their second one was Japan, and now this is the first one that they kind of soft launched for China. So I can't wait to smell the other ones. This is beautiful. If you like light, fresh scents, this is stunning. Yeah, this has been a very good week for perfume for me. I've been looking for, confession, I really thought that I would fully be ready to take on gourmands right now, and for some reason it's just not hitting. I have been so nauseated by gourmand perfumes, with the exception of Vanille, because Vanille is not like I am a vanilla cupcake by any stretch of the imagination. This is like a lot smokier and like woodier and fresh. But I'm just not like, I don't know, I've been very nauseated by really gourmand sweet perfumes, even though I'm ready for autumn. Anyways, the other last thing that I want to recommend to you is the Nietzsche podcast. And I want to recommend that because, like I said, I'm getting into Nietzsche, and I really enjoy the way that he speaks about Nietzsche and other philosophers through the lens of Nietzsche. That's a great podcast for philosophy. Other random thing that I have really been loving this week is this palette from Mary Phillips, I believe it's called. It's brand new. She's the one who like kind of blew up underpainting on the internet, underpainting makeup. So this is very much worth the hype. I've been really loving this. The other last thing that I want to mention is this book that I got, thrifted book. This is Dostoevsky, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and Kafka. I don't really know what I'm getting into with this, but number one, I think the cover is stunning, and I love these philosophers, so I'm excited to get into this. And it's been annotated, which I love and hate in equal measure. Anyways, that is my weekly update. So let's get into the essay for this week. Can intellectual intimacy replace physical desire? This is the question that has been haunting me my whole life, because there is this level of seduction that exists beyond our body, something that is less tangible and perhaps more potent. Anais Nin knew this better than anyone else because she lived it and she wrote about it in her journals. Desire does not begin with touch, but with language and perception, and this sharp electrical pull of a mind that challenges and excites you. And for her, seduction was not only a physical hunger, but a hunger of the intellect and an unraveling of thought before an unraveling of the body. I think most of us have felt it. That moment when someone says something intelligent or profound, and something that really stops you and makes you see yourself or the world differently. It makes your whole body feel altered just by the idea of this person. I think to be drawn to another person's mind is to feel their thoughts press against your own. And I think that this can be more intoxicating than any physical closeness. And so the question is whether that intoxication can ever be enough, whether the seduction of the mind can replace the seduction of the flesh. Philosophy has wrestled with this question and this tension for centuries. Plato called it eros, which is desire as a ladder that begins with physical beauty and climbs toward the eternal. At the bottom rung, eros is nothing more than lust, attraction to another's body and in the heat of the moment. But higher up, eros becomes a longing for beauty and this yearning for truth and for the divine. And here is really the cruelty of Plato's vision. In order to ascend, we must abandon the body. The flesh becomes an obstacle, something to be transcended. where physical intimacy is reimagined as this sort of distraction and a rung to be discarded once it has lifted us higher. I guess that begs the question, can we really discard the body so easily? Like, can we talk about desire without flesh, without heat, without the ache of the physical? And I think this is really the paradox that keeps pulling me back, is this idea of intellectual intimacy, and whether it's, intoxicating because it seems cleaner and higher and safer than desire itself. But the truth is, I think we are not only minds, we are bodies, we are hunger, and maybe the body resists being left behind. If Plato imagined Eros as a ladder leading away from the body, Augustine reinterpreted that hunger through the Christian lens, and for him, every desire that we feel, both erotic, intellectual, emotional, is ultimately a misplaced yearning for God. And that is a tragedy. I think in Augustine's view, we mistake people for salvation, and we think that their love will complete us and that their presence will steady the ground beneath our feet. We hunger for them as if they could redeem us, but inevitably they fail, and not because they are cruel or unworthy, but because they are human, they are fallible and fragile and finite. And to Augustine, only God can satisfy that desire, and only God is unchanging and eternal and whole. And when we fall in love with another person and become obsessed with their body or their mind, we are misdirecting a deeper hunger. It is not them that we want, it is God in his eyes, and the ache of disappointment when we realize that they cannot save us is proof of all of that. He said, I had to become myself a vast problem. I've loved, not yet to be loved, but to love, and in search for something to love, I was hateful to myself. And the life that I lived with my friends was not real friendship, but the longing of souls who could not rest until they rested in you. That's from Confessions. And in some sense, he's right, because how many of us have felt the collapse of that illusion, the moment when someone you adored suddenly seems ordinary, when the spell breaks, and when the divine light that you projected onto them flickers out. The ick, essentially. Desire so often disappoints because we are asking of another person what no one else can give us, which is transcendence. The idea that love takes us beyond ourselves, past our own limits and desires or isolation, towards something higher, larger, more enduring. But what if the mind is the divine itself? And what if desire is not a distraction from God, but a pathway toward him? And what if intimacy, both intellectual or physical, is not proof of our exile from the divine, but evidence that we are still reaching for it? The medieval mystics thought this way as well, and for Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross, divine intimacy was spoken in a language that was deeply and scandalous and erotic. And Teresa wrote of her body pierced by the angel's golden spear, of being overcome with the pleasure that was too much for her to bear. And John wrote, of the soul as a lover wounded by divine love. And they really blurred the line between the sacred and the sensual, suggesting that perhaps the deepest intimacy is not physical at all, but something ineffable. Really something that leaves the body trembling even without being touched. And this is where I find myself pulled between these two visions of Augustine, who insists that desire can never really be satisfied by another person, and the mystics, who insist that desire, even in its most bodily form, can become essentially a doorway to the divine. So coming back to Anais Nin, not only did she theorize about the seduction of the mind, but she really lived it relentlessly. Her life and her writing exist in that charged space between intellectual intimacy and physical desire, never content to remain in one or the other. She was very much drawn to Henry Miller's mind as much to his body and his words and his ideas, and his refusal to look away from what most people tried to suppress. But there was also June, who was Henry's wife, whose presence disrupted everything. June was enigmatic and elusive, and a figure who slipped constantly between friend, rival, muse, and beloved. And Anais adored her and desired her, but could never fully possess her. And so she found herself caught in this triangle that was not just about flesh, but also about perception and language and mystery. And the attraction to Henry was intellectual and erotic and inseparable. And the attraction to June was even more complicated. It was aesthetic and emotional and spiritual and erotic and intellectual all at once. She said, "I am more interested in a way that a man thinks than the way he looks. Henry is not handsome, but he has the most exciting mind that I had ever known. And with June, it is different. She is a mystery itself, a poem I cannot decipher, a beauty that escapes possession." And her journals show this obsession with language as foreplay, and the way that she describes a look, a phrase, a moment of silence that is stretched too long, it all feels so incredibly erotic, and not just in content, but in rhythm. And her writing really seduces how it moves and how it hesitates and spills over. And she is somebody who didn't just write about desire, she wrote in a way that was desire. So this leads us back to the overarching question of this essay is, can intellectual intimacy replace physical desire, or is it simply another form of it? And when Anais is caught between Henry and June, she is so consumed by words and by thoughts and impressions. Is she escaping the body, or is she only heightening its absence? And so perhaps in this sense, intellectual intimacy is intoxicating, and not because it replaces desire, but it delays it. It is seduction by postponement and the ache of not yet, which is tragic because if intellectual intimacy remains unfulfilled, it can trap us into this permanent state of becoming, unfinished and unresolved. And maybe that's the point, because a mind that is never fully possessed is a mind that remains desirable. And Anais Nin's life makes clear that she did not want to choose. She wanted both, the body and the mind, and the immediate and the infinite, the finished and the unfinished. So the real intoxication is not replacing one with the other, but just being torn between the two in this latent state of indecision. Now, the existentialists approached intimacy with a lot of suspicion, and for them, desire was never innocent. It was always tangled with freedom and selfhood and the unbearable weight of being seen. Sartre argued that all desire is performative, and when we long for another, when we hunger for their body or for their mind, we are not simply reaching outward. We are staging ourselves. We are creating who we are in their gaze. So intimacy, even in the most intellectual kind, is a performance. It's not just about knowing, it's about being known. And this cruelty of desire, it is never fully about the other, but it is also never fully about ourselves. When we fall in love with someone's mind, when their words intoxicate us, what we may actually desire is the version of ourselves reflected back in their recognition. So desire is not simply about possession, it's about projection. Sartre says, to love is, in essence, to wish to be loved. To desire is to wish oneself desired. And the lover does not seek the beloved, he seeks himself through the beloved. And that is from being in nothingness. And there's also Kierkegaard, who calls despair the sickness unto death, which is the condition of not wanting to be oneself, or not wanting to be oneself before God. And if we connect to this intimacy, then intellectual desire might also be a way of avoiding despair. We long for another's mind to save us from the emptiness of our own. We seduce with ideas because we are terrified of the silence, and this is the existential suspicion that intellectual intimacy is not higher or purer or more transcendent than physical desire, but just another form of the same hunger and another attempt to escape ourselves. And I don't think that this suspicion cancels the beauty of it. I think that it deepens it, because if desire is performative and if intimacy is a way of creating ourselves, then every philosophical conversation and every charged glance and unfinished dialogue is also a work of art. It is not only about them, it is about ourselves and the way that we become more ourselves in their presence. These types of charged interactions can reshape us long after conversations with these people end. And if I'm honest, this is not just an intellectual exercise, it is something that is very lived. I think there is a difference between preferring intellectual intimacy and needing it, and between finding conversation exciting and finding it essential. Some of us, including myself, are very wired this way, where attraction is impossible without the mind. A single phrase, a conversation, the way that a person thinks critically can hit so much deeper than touch ever could. And I think to be known this way is to be undressed, but not in the body, but rather in thought. The body can be mapped, claimed, exhausted, but the mind is infinite. It cannot be finished, it cannot be consumed, and perhaps that is the greatest level of seduction of this whole concept. But if physical desire binds us to the moment, intellectual intimacy suspends us in this constant state of potential. It's unfinished, unresolved, and always on the edge of becoming. It smolders and it prolongs and it withholds, and it promises more than it gives. I think that's what keeps us coming back to it, is this thrill of the unknown and the ache of what always, almost, but never will fully be ours. Plato would say that love must rise above the body. Augustine would say that all desire is for God. The mystics would say that Eros itself is divine. And Sartre would say that even our own highest intimacy is still a performance. Anais Nin would say that desire lives in both the word and the flesh, and that neither can ever fully replace the other. And I find myself pulled between all of them and unwilling to choose. Because to choose is to simplify, and intimacy resists simplification. The mind may seduce, but it really is the body that remembers all of it. The body may hunger, but it is the mind that lingers on people and conversation. And so, can intellectual intimacy replace physical desire? Perhaps the answer is no, but perhaps that is the wrong question. The true intoxication may not be in replacement, but in tension, and in the refusal to resolve, and in the smolder that never burns out. Because seduction, in the end, is not about satisfaction, it is about transformation. Not what we receive, but what we become. And in the mind, which is infinite and unfinished and unknowable, will always promise more.